All right, so hello everyone. Here is our plan for this little video. Is I want to read to you the difference between an emerging, a developing, a proficient, and an extending essay. These are all going to be analytical essays, and they're all going to be about the Itsy Bitsy Spider. And the goal is to show you what like a grade 6, 7, 8 student could or should be writing about. So I'm going to briefly read you the poem, The Itsy Bitsy Spider. I'm going to read you each sample essay, and then just very briefly we're going to talk about why it is, let's say, assessed at that level. So here's the poem. So the Itsy Bitsy Spider climbed up the water spout. Down came the rain and washed the spider out. Out came the sun and dried up all the rain, and the Itsy Bitsy Spider climbed up the spout again. So this essay, as we can see, is a little bit small. Doesn't mean that it's not good yet. We'll find out that it is just beginning. But typically the more we write, the more information we're able to get out. So let's take a look. There's a number of things. And by the way, I wrote these 4 examples, so I intentionally put things in them to show you little like things or accidents that we tend to see in each level. So in this one, you're going to notice there's punctuation that is not always correct, spelling that is not always correct, and the register, that means like how formal or informal, like does it sound like you're just talking in the playground, or does it sound like a letter to the queen, right? So sometimes the essay is not as formal as it should be in an emerging essay. So let's read this. And by the way, the instructions would be write an essay about what is the theme of the Itsy Bitsy Spider. So here's the essay. So I'm going to talk about the poem about the Itsy Bitsy Spider because that's what my essay's on. It's actually a song sometimes, so it's both a song and a poem, but I'm still going to talk about it. I think that it's about a spider and how he never gives up because he goes up the water spout again. And I don't really know why he's going up a water spout, but he is so that means that he never gives up, even if it's always raining and he gets all dried up and stuff, and he's climbing all the time. There's some stuff in the poem that I know it's about never giving up, which is the theme. Some of the things in the poem are how the sun comes out, and that is like a challenge, but so is the rain. So there's symbols that are in the poem, and the theme has symbols in it. So when we look at what was successful about this, there are a few things. Number one, we discuss the theme. They mention that there is a theme. They mention some symbols, and they are actually analyzing the essay, not in a way that's really thorough or deep or maybe engaging or entirely clear. But we can tell that they've read the poem. We can tell that they have an opinion about the poem. We can tell that they actually understand that the spider is climbing up the water spout and struggling to do it, and that represents challenges. And anyways, so we've got some things working. Some of the things that are not working here is there's not really any organization. The spelling and punctuation are confusing. The grammar is a little bit confusing. But more than that, there's no driving argument here that is supported by a lot of really clear examples. All right, let's take a look at an essay that is developing. So actually, let me just zoom out a little bit. One of the nice things you can tell, so I've still just kept the poem here, the song, so that you could reference it if you need to. One of the things that we see right away is it's longer. And again, quantity is not everything, but typically when you write more, you're going to end up saying more. So we see it's longer. We also see it's organized. It's not just one paragraph. We've got what appears, we haven't read it yet, what appears to be an introduction, a conclusion, and 3 body paragraphs. So I'm telling you right now that I think this is a developing essay. It's getting there. We're starting to make arguments. We're starting to make connections with examples that support our arguments. So let's take a look, and then we'll talk about it after. So I'm going to talk about the Itsy Bitsy Spider, and I'm going to tell you about the theme. The theme is never giving up. The 3 things I'm going to talk about are repetition, symbolism, and rhyme. In my first body paragraph, I'm going to talk about repetition. The theme is never giving up. People who sometimes give up face challenges. Usually challenges happen again and again and again. The poem has repetition, climbed up the water spout and out an itsy bitsy spider. In my second body paragraph, I'm going to talk about symbolism. The rain is a symbol of a challenge, and the sun is a symbol of success. The poem started with the challenge, the rain, and ended with the sun, success. This means that if you never give up, you will start with a challenge, but you will end with success. In my third body paragraph, I'm going to talk about rhyme. Words that rhyme make us notice them more. One of the rhymes that is really good is water spout and out, and the word rain and again. This means that when we read the poem or even hear the poem, we notice those words more. They become kind of like a focus. The words that stick out are water spout, out, rain, and again. This makes us think of them that is challenge, because a challenge is like an obstacle or something that is hard to get over or defeat. The rhyming words like rain and again make us think that this poor little spider is going to keep getting washed out by the rain every time it rains. That's what a challenge is, something that's hard to overcome, maybe because it happens a lot. So the theme of never giving up means that there's always going to be a challenge, and that theme is in the Itsy Bitsy Spider. In conclusion, the theme of never giving up is the theme of the Itsy Bitsy Spider. Repetition, symbolism, and rhyme give us clues about the theme. So let's look at what happened that was really good. First things first, it's at least kind of organized, right? Like we have your introduction, we've got a conclusion, and each body paragraph there is a focus. Sometimes within the paragraphs there's not a lot of organization, but at least we have them kind of chunked into bigger groups between the paragraphs. So that's a start. Next is it's definitely on task. It's definitely focused on the poem. They know that there's a theme. They're telling us, they're saying the theme is never giving up. There's examples. They actually reference specific lines of the poem, which is very exciting. There is a bit of an argument in the third body paragraph that is being made that is more clear, right? Like they're spending a little bit more time trying to explain to us why they think what they think. Some of the things that maybe didn't work so well is the grammar still a little bit confusing at times. There's still a few punctuation and spelling issues to sort out. And although they're starting to do a better job of understanding the poem and pick out symbols, it's the argument piece that is still a little bit weak. It's almost there. It's getting there. It's on the horizon. But I don't know if this poem would necessarily convince anyone about what the author's trying to say. I think this poem is a really good starting point, this essay is a really good starting point. But their argument is just not quite strong enough, even though they have examples, they have, quotes. It's almost there. All right, let's take a look at proficient. So what I actually did in order to, let me just clarify this. This is funny, is I went from developing and I said, okay, I'm gonna give them a proficient. And what ended up happening is I ended up making the extending essay because it was easier to write well than it was to write not well. So what I actually did is I wrote the extending essay, and then I went and I took out all the parts of the extending essay that worked really well. And I ended up with the proficient essay. So the proficient essay it has the same content as the extending, but it's the ability to argue eloquently that is missing in the proficient essay. That's the difference. So all of the fancier bits, the smooth bits, are taken out in the proficient one, but all of the content is the exact same. Which to me, that's kind of the difference is you can make an argument, but can you do it really well? You can give examples. Can you do it with style? So let's read this. The proficient one, when I zoom out, you can see it's definitely longer. Again, quantity sometimes helps to equal quality. You just end up saying more. I've also indented here a little bit. We've got a couple more specific examples, like we actually say line 6, line 8. And I think there's more of an argument being made. So let's read through this and we'll see what we see. So again, the instructions are right about the theme. So success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. This is a quote by Winston Churchill, and it is good. Perseverance is our ability to push through barriers. This essay will discuss how the theme of the Itsy Bitsy Spider is perseverance. We will examine how repetition, juxtaposition, and symbolism help to present the theme. We will analyze how repetition used throughout the poem reminds us of the theme perseverance in the Itsy Bitsy Spider. When the poem uses repetition, the reader makes the subconscious mental connection with the idea that challenges will continually happen and that we will have to continually force ourselves to try to overcome those challenges. The examples of repetition we see are on lines 1 and 7, the Itsy Bitsy Spider, lines 2 and 8, climbed up the. This is interesting because the act of repeating helps us to understand the idea that the spider is always climbing, that his journey is life is a struggle, and that he will always face challenges. The itsy bitsy spider needs to persevere against the rain, and we feel like the spider will have to fight the rain again in the future, so he will need to persevere. When the lines repeat, the idea is emphasized. A connection is made between repetition as a literary device and the idea of repetition as an act. Some of the words in the poem make us think of perseverance. We have a contrast between two things that are different, and this makes juxtaposition. Up, lines 2 and 6, and down, line 3. Rain, line 3, and sun, line 5. And washed, line 4, and dried, line 6. The theme of perseverance can be felt by seeing so many opposites and contrasting images being placed together. When the poem uses juxtaposition, rain and sun, we know that there will be challenging times in life, the rain, but that there will also be rewarding times in life too, the sun. The idea that the itsy bitsy spider continually climbs up the water spout, even though the spider knows it's going to rain, tells us of the importance of perseverance. Perseverance is like steadfastness. The itsy bitsy spider is a perfect example of an individual that represents steadfastness. The symbols in this poem tell us about the theme of perseverance as they remind us of challenges, hurdles, and successes. One of the symbols used in this poem is the water spout, lines 2 and 8. It's a piece of equipment that gets rid of unwanted and excessive amounts of water. The water spout rejects things, and the spider's climbing up it. The spider is doing whatever it takes to reach the top. The spider is climbing over the challenges and reaching for success. Even when the rain, line 6, comes, the spider is able to work through the problems and setbacks and rise up again, line 8. One final symbol which reinforces the theme of perseverance is the spider itself, the itsy bitsy spider. The spider's name means super teeny tiny. The spider's size is a symbol of how we feel when we face a challenge. However, his insistence of climbing the spout tells us that he is trying to persevere. Just because the spider is itsy bitsy does not stop the spider from achieving. The itsy bitsy spider might seem like a poem about a bug, but the theme of perseverance shows us that it is actually about an individual who's just trying to succeed in life. Repetition, juxtaposition, and symbolism help the reader to understand the theme of perseverance. This makes us wonder the following question: what motivates the itsy bitsy spider to continually climb the water spout each time the spider gets washed out? So, this essay is better than the developing essay for a couple reasons. Number one is in each body paragraph, so in each of these three guys here, we have an argument and it is really discussed at length. Not necessarily with style, right? The language part hasn't really impressed anyone, but the arguments are there. We've got examples, and we're trying to convince the reader, and I think the reader is going to be convinced that, like, yep, I see what you're saying. This is about perseverance. Let's take a look now at the extending essay. Again, this one is just like the proficient one. I've kept all of the arguments and quotes and everything the same. The only thing that's different is it has more flair, it has more style, and it explains things using more accurate and effective word choices. So instead of saying, for example, when we said this is a quote by Winston Churchill and it is good, we're going to see over here, Winston Churchill was absolutely correct when he said this. It just sounds a little bit more convincing, like we're trying to lead the reader through an argument in an eloquent way. So let's read through this. So this is kind of the best that I would expect you guys to be able to write in like grade 6, 7, 8. So, success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Winston Churchill was absolutely correct when he said this. Perseverance is more important than success and more rewarding than achievement. For in our ability to push through barriers, our determination is in itself a victory. This essay will discuss how the theme of the itsy bitsy spider is perseverance. We will examine how repetition, juxtaposition, and symbolism help to present and reinforce the theme, which is so craftily and effortlessly woven throughout the poem repeatedly. We need to persevere when challenges are difficult or repeated. We will analyze how repetition used throughout the poem subtly reinforces the theme of perseverance in the itsy bitsy spider. The interesting and problematic thing with challenges is that challenges are often repeated. We typically face the same sort of issues, even if they present themselves in different ways. When the poem uses repetition, the reader makes the subconscious mental connection with the idea that challenges will continually present themselves and that we will have to continually force ourselves to try to overcome those challenges. The use of repetition reminds us of the necessity of perseverance. The examples of repetition we see are on lines 1 and 7. The Itsy Bitsy Spider, lines 2 and 8, climbed up thee. This is quite interesting because the act of repeating emphasizes the idea that the spider is always climbing, that his journey in life is a struggle, and that he will continually face challenges. The Itsy Bitsy Spider needs to persevere against the rain, symbolic of a challenge, and we get the feeling that the spider will face more water-related issues in the future, and that he will have to keep climbing up the spout time after time, symbolic of his need to persevere. In this way, when the lines repeat, the idea is emphasized. A parallel has been established between repetition as a literary device and the idea of repetition as an act. The clever usage of repetition as a literary device subconsciously reminds us that perseverance is required in order to overcome the continual challenges. Some of the words in the poem directly speak to perseverance through their contrast to each other. We have a dichotomy, which is a division or contrast between two things that are or are represented as being opposed or entirely different, between a number of words where juxtaposition is created. Up, lines 2 and 6, and down, line 3. Rain, line 3, and sun, line 5. And washed, line 4, and dried, line 6. When juxtaposition is used, we feel friction and tension. When people face challenges in their life, they also experience friction and tension. The theme of perseverance can be felt by seeing so many opposites and contrasting images being placed together. Each example of juxtaposition is like a symbolic reminder of a challenge. The poem is literally riddled with these challenges. However, the poem reminds us, through the use of one of the examples of juxtaposition, rain and sun, that there will be challenging times in life, represented by the rain, but that there will also be rewarding times in life too, represented by the sun. The idea that the Itsy Bitsy Spider continually climbs up the water spout, even though the spider knows it's going to rain again, tells us of the importance of perseverance. Perseverance is a continued effort to do or achieve something despite difficulties, failure, or opposition. The action or condition or an instance of persevering. Steadfastness. The Itsy Bitsy Spider is a perfect example of an individual that represents steadfastness. The symbols in this poem reinforce the theme of perseverance as they remind us of challenges, hurdles, and successes. One of the symbols used in this poem is the water spout, lines 2 and 8, a pipe running down the side of a building to carry away water from the gutter of the roof. It's a piece of equipment that gets rid of unwanted and excessive amounts of water. The water spout rejects things, and the spider is climbing up it. This is a clear example of a spider doing whatever it takes to symbolically and literally reach the top. The spider is climbing over the challenges and reaching for success. Even when the rain, line 6, comes, symbolic of trouble or hard times, the spider is able to work through the problems and setbacks and rise up again, line 8. One final symbol which reinforces the theme of perseverance is the spider itself, the Itsy Bitsy Spider. The spider's name is quite literally synonymous with super teeny tiny. The spider's size is a symbol of how we feel when we face a challenge. However, his continued and unstoppable insistence of climbing the spout is symbolic of a sizable drive to achieve success. Even though the spider is so small that he seems inconsequential and insignificant, the spider is still able to do great things. Just because the spider is itsy bitsy does not stop the spider from achieving. The Itsy Bitsy Spider might seem like a poem about an insignificant arachnid, but the theme of perseverance shows us that it is a poem that is actually about a steadfast achiever, that size doesn't matter, and that the quality of character is more important than anything else. Repetition, juxtaposition, and symbolism help the reader to interpret and relate to the theme of perseverance. A lot can be learned from the Itsy Bitsy Spider's character and unstoppable sense of determination. Knowing what we know about the spider's challenges so far, we are left to ponder the following questions. What motivates the Itsy Bitsy Spider to continually climb the water spout each time the spider gets washed out? And will the Itsy Bitsy Spider ever attempt to climb the water spout before the rain stops, knowing that they might get washed out halfway through their journey? So, when we look at what was successful about this compared to the proficient essay, there is, again, the proof is the same. The quotes are the same. It is argued more effectively because of the quality of the arguments, the explanations, and the language used to argue it. That one other thing I wanted to point out, which I don't think I've ever pointed out before in my videos, is in our developing essay, you can see that they say, I'm going to talk in my first body paragraph, in my second body paragraph. Like the information to say that, like it's good information. You're not really, though, supposed to say I in an analytical essay, because the idea is that if you say I, it's an opinion. If you don't say I, it sounds more just like a fact. Like if you said, I think dogs are animals, well, it makes it sound like there's room for debate. Maybe dogs are not animals. If you just simply said, though, dogs are animals, well, now that just sounds like a fact. It doesn't sound like an opinion. We do that in the extending essay and in the proficient essay. We don't have the word I. We get rid of it. We still say, though, like we still tell the reader what we're going to do. We're still like, in my first body paragraph, I'm going to talk about repetition. Let's look how we did that in the proficient one. It says, we will analyze how repetition, actually it should say is used throughout the poem. Oddly enough, in a lot of essays, you're allowed to say we, because it makes it sound like collectively there's a group of intellectuals that all agree with you. If you say I, it makes it sound like you're the only one who thinks it, and you're probably wrong. So that's one of the things you're going to notice, is that we still have a sentence that indicates what we're going to do. We just do it differently than the developing essay. All right, I hope that helps you guys, and good luck.